Put my tat on first for my label. We've got a 0 mark right here. First mark is at 28 inches. The second mark is at 8 inches for a 3-inch eye. Then you measure down 22 inches and then 11 inches. For the taper, I want to go back to my first 28-inch mark, and I want to do every 5th pair for 5 pairs. So you'll have 5 sets of 2. After the last mark, I go another few inches and I tie it off, or you could pin it. I leave a little bit of a gap there. So it looks like this. Now from here I take my awl and I go into mark, I think it's C, the 22-inch mark, and I'm going to pop the cores out by opening this up at my mark. You don't want to be too aggressive. You don't want to pull these apart so tightly that it deforms the rope, but you still want to get in there and pull your cores out. Kind of just work it out. Sometimes I'll get to a spot where I can go like this without grabbing the ends and just twist it like this, back and forth one time, and it will pop it right out, and you can pull it out a little bit like that. And you'll have 4 bundles of 3 ends and a fib tape, like a date tape. So when it looks like that, without pulling this end, I'll just pull this part out. Then you end up with this long tail, which I immediately cut in half. Because you only need half of it. Makes it easier to work with. So this is what we have. And then I'll just kind of work some of the twist out of these like this. You end up with this. Pull it out a little bit. Break this tape off. You don't need it. Straighten these out. You end up with this. Looks like that. Next, I'm going to cut my tapers out. And I'm going to use this taper knife. When I cut this, I cut it at this top of the pick, not the bottom, because if I cut at the bottom, I won't have anything to hold on to. So I just do it like that. And then I pull this, start at the bottom part, pull one out like this, kind of work it around my fingers. It get easier when you get towards the top. Alright. So then I have this. And I'll take cut this off at a 45, take a piece of tape and bullet the end of this, just taping it up tightly. So I got a nice smooth bullet. To go into my soft fid. Milk this back. Pulled this out a little bit. Pulled it out about 6 inches. And then I made sure that it was all smooth, and then I milked it back. That way when I put my fids in there, it's going to go smoothly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this soft fid. It's about 3 feet long or so. It's long enough so that it can go from my last mark all the way up to my eye mark. It's 1/4 inch core material, and it works well. I have 2 wire fids. I use a short one and a long one. That's all. It's all about preference. Instead of going in at your eye mark and going all the way down and pulling the soft fid out, I use 2, and I go in here at the exit point of the core, and I come out here, versus doing the whole length, because I have a difficult time with it, so this is my trick. Pull this back. You want to make sure you don't get caught up in the core itself. If it goes hard, you can kind of pull the core back a little bit and kind of reposition it. But you'll feel it go. I'll put my soft fid in there like this. Pull that out. I'm done with that. Pull this all the way out. And now I'm going to use my longer one. I'm going to go in my second eye mark and go all the way down. I can feel it stop. And I don't want to be too forceful with it because I don't want to tangle anything up. So I want to make sure this is nice and out of the way, and I want to make sure these are clearly separate. And I'm going to pop my tail of my wire fid out. And then I'm going to hold on to these ends right here so they don't get sucked in, and to keep them separate. And then I'm just going to pull this through like this. So now I have this. Now I'm going to feed this bullet. That's why you want your bullet nice and tight. I'm going to feed that into this wire fid. Sometimes you got to cut the end off. So I'm going to feed this into the wire fid. This one's a little used. And then I'm going to, keeping pressure on this part, I'm going to pull this, start pulling this up so that it feeds in through. You kind of have to keep pressure on it or it might come off because it's like a Chinese finger trap. And then when you get to the point where it's almost all the way, you hold on to these ends and you put your hand right here, and you just pull it through. And it should come right through, like this. It looks like that. And then what I do is I'll pull this up to get some length here, and I have a cleat on the bench here, and I just tie off on a cleat. You can tie off on a pin, whatever's sturdy, because you want something strong. And then you want to make sure that your ends, the marker on the rope lines up. You don't want any twist in the eye. So I'm just going to make sure this kind of lines up perfect. And I'm going to bury right up to my mark. Sometimes I get a little bit of a hump right here. So I'll just take my mallet, give it a little tap, just so that it's nice and flat. Okay, so now I have my eye, my 3-inch eye. I have this end, and I have this end. So now I want to get these buried the rest of the way. I'll put this on my pin. There's a couple of ways to do this, but what I do is this. I pull it tight, and then I'll milk it back. You can see the core sucking in there. And I'll do the same here. Milk it back both ways. Sometimes people will do this on a cleat or something like that, like this. Milk it this way. I don't really care to do it that way, but you can do it that way. It's not bad. And once you get the slack out, you'll be able to feel it, because when there's slack, you can feel it. This slack's out. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to mark this. I'm going to mark where the core exits. I'm going to mark where the tail exits. I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to pull this out. Sometimes this part goes a little hard. I'm going to cut this off. So I cut that off at my marks. This one's a little bit tight, so the core didn't pull out as far as it usually does. Sometimes you can pull it out like 6 inches, sometimes a little less. But what I do is I want to make a taper. This one's perfect. It's 6 inches. This one's like 4.5. But I'm gonna taper that out every step. Just step my taper out. I'm not too careful to measure it exactly, but I taper it out in pairs, because you want this to lay like this over each other. You do not want a big pregnant spot, and you do not want an empty spot. If you can touch your fingers here with no core and stuff, throw it away. Do not send that out ever. No gaps. So it kind of looks like this. I got little tapers on both sides. And now I'm just gonna put it on my cleat and just give it a nice long tug. Without milking it, see, it sucked right in. I'm just gonna milk this up, give it another pull, milk it back. Kind of, I can feel every time I do that, I can feel it settling. Right where that crossover is, it might feel a little stiff. It shouldn't be so stiff that it feels like there's two ropes in there. But it might feel a little bit stiff, and that's fine. Like it might look like that, it's okay. As long as you can go like this, you're fine. Tie this. Throw a whipping on here. And you just shrink your tat and your label, and that's that.